Memories of a Beggar. Take one, I was going to call it. No, I thought take one, that sounds a bit, has some reference to begging something or other. Let's call it note one, note less, because I've not got any notes and I'm thinking it's quite a subject that I've experience of. Obviously, otherwise it couldn't be Memories of a Beggar. There are quite a few points there that I'd like to share. And realising it might, this video obviously already is well, the clock here is 1 minute, no 2 minutes, no 1 minute, so it's probably 2 minutes of YouTube time. And what's that got to do with begging? Memories of a Beggar, very interesting in many ways. The experience leading up to that begging. It's not something I'd describe as experience. It's not something I'd describe as interesting, I was going to say. I need to think about that one actually. What led up to believing I needed to go begging. But it gets into belief and lack of faith, trusting self to provide for self, because it's not a road I would suggest anyone who tries, though, is it? Again, very interesting, where you throw yourself at the mercy of, I used to call them the gods, but that was before I realised I had to be specific. I have to be specific about what I'm saying. though when I get into conversations with people about gods are, I cannot say there are no gods, even now. And then there are the men who play games and it's a whole other subject that's linked to the reasons why I went begging. It's not something I did every day. It's perhaps not something I did more than 24 times, possibly a little more than 24 times. And you're sitting there and the choices are either sit there with a notice, with your request upon it. The famous one is homeless and hungry, that people use, because you'll find that, well, if you offer them food instead of money, they prefer the money, when there are possibly reasons for that. I mean, yeah, I could think of 3 straight off the top of my head, though. And there are homeless people. I've been homeless myself. That is the most well, a bit of loose change ain't going to alter that one. And neither's a £10 note either, unfortunately. £10 note might help if somebody would to buy themselves a second-hand duvet or something to wrap themselves up in, but even then, if it's wet, fucking hell. When you're homeless, to register for being homeless, you need to find a safe place to sleep on the streets. And that itself, a safe place to sleep on the street. Is it a safe place to actually walk on the street, never mind sleep on the street? In actual safe, it's safety, it's safe. It is safe to walk here. There is 100% guarantee that nothing and no one will bother you in any way whatsoever, ever. Ever's here again. Oh no, that video was rejected. It's too long, wasn't it? Oh no. So your options are, you sat there, wherever there is, and that's again the picking of the pitch, they call them. Professional beggars. Pitch, that's my pitch, mate, get off it. Fucking you get that as well, you know. You don't sit in somebody else's pitch and they turn up, or be sitting a pitch and someone turns up and they want it, they'll say that to you anyway just to get you off there, and then they can be there, and then woe betide any foreigner coming along doing it, fucking coming to our country begging out. I've got to fucking beg them there. I've seen it. In fact, I could tell you a story there. Although I could also tell you a story about foreign beggars coming here and begging professionally, collecting what they need and fucking off back to wherever they came from. It's just from an observational point of view, that, rather than why am I saying it then, Anthony? Interestingly enough. One world, honest. So, on the pitch, sat on the pitch, it's a goal, and the goal is to collect £23, £20 for the heroin, £3 for sundries, perhaps £10 for the heroin, so the goal is to collect £18. There's always a goal and there's always a pitch, you know. I never realised that football and begging were related. So you can either have a sign saying, I need 10 quid for heroin and £8 for sundries, or some lie, homeless and hungry. Or you can ask and you can show it to people as they walk by, or you can sit there with your head down, or you can actually, with people who just sit there with their head down, with their hand out, with their head down. I know one kid who used to just sit there with his hood up. Within a few hours somebody come and give him what he needed. What he was doing I don't know. Whether he was using some form of mind attraction. He's dead now. Not that that's related to his begging, well perhaps it was, I don't know. The other option is to ask everyone walking by, you got any spare change, mate? Have you got any change? Can you spare any change? Have you got any spare change, please? Could you spare any change? I got to one point where I was using it as asking them to change, begging them to change. I'm begging you for change. I did need the money, I wouldn't have been doing the begging. Well, did I need the money? Did I need to take any more heroin so that I'm still suffering to an overstatement? So I'm still having to recover now as a consequence of not being able to deal with it then for whatever reason or whatever justification. Because whilst they seemed valid at the time, they're no more valid now than they were then, and they're not valid now, so they weren't valid then. And there's this pitch, a goal in a valley. A valley, that's the name of a football ground, isn't it? Charlton Athletic. One thing you realise is these people you're asking for money as they're walking by, they're no better off than you. In fact, in many ways they're worse off. At least once I've collected me 18 quid, I'm going getting high and I've not got a care in the world. They've got responsibilities, possibly families to feed, and they're not no fucking greater income than, in fact some beggars are that fucking good at it. You know, the people walking by are on less income. I haven't made a very good vlog about begging. Memories I need to deal with. Memories. Could a memory be said to be anything other than in the present? In that it hasn't left, so it cannot be called the past. And as it is a memory of the past in the present, then isn't the memory itself bringing the past into the future? If only as memory. What use is memory anyway? Do you really need to remember things to learn from them? Or do you remember learning how to ride a bike, or can you just ride it still? Interesting stuff. Thanks a lot.